I'm Christina Jump with the Constitutional Law Center for Muslims in America, and I am the Civil Litigation Department Head for CLCMA. And I'm here today with my colleague, Najma Mohsin.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in.
And today, Najma will be speaking with us about belief behind bars, upholding religious freedom in prisons. And so, Najma, if you'd like to go ahead and get us started, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Christy. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to watch this video. In this presentation, I will briefly explain the laws applicable to religious freedom in prisons, highlight some really concerning statistics, and provide some examples of what CLCMA is doing to help these inmates. To give a little bit of background on myself, I am an Equal Justice Works Fellow sponsored by Aiken, Grum, Strauss, Hauer, and Feld. And what this means is that I'm at CLCMA for 2 years on a project-specific basis. And my project is focused on improving conditions for Muslim inmates nationwide, both through litigation and other interaction with prisons, as well as by creating a proactive manual that prisons can adopt and Know Your Rights campaigns. If you are interested in reading more about the project, you can find some more information on our website, clcma.org. So in September 2000, then President Bill Clinton signed into law the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act, or RLUIPA, which unequivocally extended religious freedoms to incarcerated persons. RLUIPA, along with RFRA, are the two primary laws concerning religious accommodations for inmates nationwide. The only real difference between these two laws is that the federal RFRA applies to federal actors and RLUIPA applies to state actors. While inmates cannot generally recover monetarily under either of these laws, they can get what is called injunctive relief, which means that the policy is either changed just for them or as a blanket for the entire prison or prison system. RLUIPA has two main parts. The religious land use part protects religious institutions such as mosques, synagogues, etc., from discrimination and laws such as zoning laws, tax laws, etc. The second part of RLUIPA protects the religious freedom of inmates and detainees, and this is what my project and this presentation focus on. The pertinent language of RLUIPA states that the government may not pose a substantial burden on the religious exercise of an incarcerated person unless the government can show that the burden is in furtherance of a compelling government interest and it's the least restrictive means possible. So in constitutional analysis, there are what is referred to as levels of scrutiny. So the lowest level, rational basis, is highly deferential to the government. On the other hand, strict scrutiny, which is what is used in RLUIPA lawsuits or RFRA, is more favorable to the person bringing the lawsuit, or in this case, inmates. And it forces the government to show that there's a compelling government interest at hand. One example of a compelling government interest is safety. So I want to point out that RLUIPA says that the government may not pose a substantial burden. So for example, one thing that prisons like to do is, say an inmate wants to fast during Ramadan, they will require that that inmate sign up 30, 60, 90 days ahead of Ramadan and apply to be included on what is commonly referred to as the Ramadan list. Of course, this is a burden, but courts have repeatedly upheld this as an insubstantial burden. Finally, the government has to show that the policy or the rule in place is the least restrictive means possible. Returning to Ramadan as the example, prisons cannot ban fasting altogether, but they can ask that the inmate take certain steps, for example, signing up ahead of time. In my opinion, and anecdotally, I find that prisoners are among the most disregarded members of society. But it's really important to remember that they are people too, and they deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. If that alone is not convincing to you, here is a little bit more on why you should care about the treatment of Muslim inmates. I think everyone is under the impression that Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world, and that trend extends to prisons as well. In 2017, the Pew Research Center conducted a study, and they found that about 3.5 million people in the United States self-identify as Muslim. So when considering that there are about 330 million people total, that means roughly 1% of the population self-identifies as Muslim. Last summer, another Muslim-facing organization called the Muslim Advocates published a report, and one thing it included in this report was a state-by-state breakdown of the number of inmates in each of these states' prison systems that identify as Muslims. So I want to draw your attention to these 8 states. Remember, I said that about 1% of the US is Muslim. Then logically, Muslims should also be represented at roughly the same rate. But if you notice, Muslims are severely overrepresented in practically every state's prison system. Take a look at New Jersey, for example. 20% of the people in New Jersey's prisons self-identify as Muslim. Of course, there is a discussion to be had about conversion while in prison and the disproportionate rates of incarceration of African American and Hispanic men, but that is beyond the scope of this presentation and another conversation for another day. So when Muslims make up such a large portion of prisons, it begs the questions of why Muslim inmates are having to fight tooth and nail to just get even basic accommodations such as the right to pray in their own cells. On an average day, we at CLCMA get about 3 to 5 letters from inmates requesting our help. The requests really range from asking us to send them a Quran or asking our help in getting halal food or the right to task. So unfortunately, sometimes there are things that are beyond our scope. So we can't give money, we can't provide materials, but when we can't help, we try our best to refer inmates to organizations that can help. Through these letters alone, we currently have over 30 inmates that we have either accepted as clients or we are in the preliminary vetting stages. This is after removing all of the inmates who have contacted us but have issues that are no longer challengeable for reasons such as either they were released from prison or they've been transferred to another prison. Of these 30-some that are represented on the map that you see, their issues range from having their Qurans thrown in the toilet or being denied halal or kosher food, or even being forbidden from changing their religion. So I want to quickly talk about that last example because in my opinion, that is the most egregious thing that I have seen since starting at CLCMA. So there was a man who, when he was admitted to prison, self-identified as Christian, and he noted himself as such on the prison's intake form. A few months later, however, he found Islam and decided to convert. So when he tried to go to Jummah and other Islamic classes, he was threatened with administrative segregation and threatened with fines because they told him he is not allowed to change his religion more than once in a year. So for 9 months, this poor man has been forced to forego religious obligations just because someone didn't want to click a few buttons on a computer. Another current client we have who we plan to file a complaint on behalf of is a Muslim woman in her early 60s who wishes to wear hijab and wear halal food. At first, a few years ago, when she requested to wear hijab, they told her that there were certain places where she couldn't wear it, but then certain places where she could. In her heart, she felt that this was unfair because there were other women who were wearing baseball caps and beanies in all places of the prison, but she didn't really feel like challenging it at the time, so she wanted to be a good prisoner, so just went along with it. Recently, however, the management has changed and things have gotten a lot worse for her. They have told her that she can't go to the doctor while wearing a hijab. She can't wear her hijab in her own housing unit, even though the prison's own rules say she can. On top of the indignity of being forced to show her hair in contradiction of her sincerely held beliefs, she is regularly subjected to verbal abuse because of her religion. She has also been fed pork many times, and where she knows that her food has pork in it, she of course throws it away. And things have gotten so bad that between the hijab issue and between the food issue, she's just started avoiding the lunchroom altogether and now only eats things that she's able to buy. This is super problematic for a few reasons. Obviously, they shouldn't be discriminating against her. But perhaps more importantly, she doesn't earn very much money as a prisoner. She makes a couple dollars a day and a couple dollars a week rather. And I think most of you will agree with me that an adult human can't survive on $10 a day. So when she inquired why all of a sudden she can't wear hijab, even though the prison's own rules say she can, the major she was talking to got very frustrated and said, listen, I am respectful of all religions. I've been to Asia. I am still confused about what the correlation between having been to Asia and respecting religion, or rather even following the law is. But I think this is just one example of the hurdles that prisoners are up against. Whether because of ignorance or animus, these Muslim prisoners are fighting so hard just to be able to practice their religion as the Constitution protects. And as Muslims, we are instructed to fight for justice and want for our brother and sister what we want for ourselves. So I think it's incumbent on us to help these inmates who are not in the best position to advocate for themselves. So inmates can litigate these issues pro se, which means they appear without an attorney, but because of the complexity of the law, regardless of what law that is being challenged, it's very hard to prevail. For inmates, this becomes even more complicated because there's a law called the Prison Litigation Reform Act, which has purposefully made it extremely cost prohibitive to discourage frivolous lawsuits. It costs $350 to file a complaint, and if the inmate chooses to appeal, that's an additional $450. They can apply to file what's called informa pauperis, which excuses some people if they're below a certain income threshold, but that's an additional step. That amount of money, the $350 and $450, can be cost prohibitive for people who are not in prison, but for inmates who on average earn $8 a week, that is an insurmountable challenge. Add to that the complexity of the law and the formalities and nuances of legal proceedings, and winning is nearly impossible to do. This is why it's really important for public interest organizations such as CLCMA, which has lawyers on staff and other resources to assist inmates who are being denied the right to practice. Prisoners, regardless of religion, are often written off and kept out of sight, out of mind. But even if someone has done something illegal or immoral, they deserve constitutional protections as well. As I mentioned at the start of this presentation, one of the things I am doing through my fellowship is creating a proactive manual and other proactive materials so that we can stop the problem before it even occurs. I have found, however, that the average person, through no fault of their own, does not always know the rights of Muslim inmates, which is why I think it's really important to educate people through these Know Your Rights campaigns. The goal is to educate Muslims, so God forbid if they ever find themselves incarcerated or if they are counseling a loved one, they know what their rights are and how to obtain those accommodations and how to obtain those accommodations. Recently, we created several Know Your Rights material that we have circulated to inmates, to prison staff, and masjids on the religious rights of prisoners during Ramadan. One set of material specifically addresses Ramadan. One is written for prisoners and one is written for prison staff, and that is what you see on your screen right now. All of the Know Your Rights material that I have and will create moving forward is available on our website, and the link is at the bottom of that slide. If that slide doesn't work for whatever reason, you can just go directly to our website, clcma.org, and click on in the news tab, and you should be able to find it. I have also created a Know Your Rights bookmark that outlines the steps an inmate should take to request a religious accommodation and the steps to take in the event that the request is unsuccessful. I have sent those bookmarks to many masjids across the nation as well as some inmates, but if your masjid, or any other religious organization that you are affiliated with would be interested in receiving and distributing those bookmarks, please shoot me an email and I will be more than happy to send some your way. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you and your loved ones have a great Ramadan, even though it's a lot different than what most of us are used to. Please keep CLCMA and the Muslim inmates fighting to practice Islam in your du'as. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Najmu. And again, thank you for joining us. And as you can see, we are still sheltering at home. So if I didn't mention it earlier, welcome to our homes. And we wish all of you well in your homes and stay safe and all take care. Thank you very much. You can reach us on our website, as Najmu mentioned. You can contact her directly, as she is our resident expert on these topics. And if for any reason you can't get in touch with Najmu or you'd like to speak with someone else, you can contact me or anyone else at CLCMA through our website or through the main number on the screen. And if you would like to seek representation, feel free to go to our website and complete our intake questionnaire, which is on the website, as that's how all requests for representation are handled, so that we can track them and make sure that we do respond to everyone who is interested. Again, thank you very much. We appreciate you joining us, and everyone stay safe, and we wish you well, and Ramadan Mubarak. Thank you.
Thank you.